Joe wants to know, what's a typical day at Nobles like these days? The rides, the food, etc.
Oh, man. So it's with a K, Knobles.
There you go.
It's an amazing park in Elysburg, Pennsylvania. This is where I think my favorite episode of Foley is Holy Foley was shot for my birthday there. I went in 2000, didn't come back to 2008. I think we've been there every year with the exception of the pandemic and one other year. It's such a great place. Family owned, family run, no parking fee, and no admission charge. Now you can buy a ride ticket for the day, but they are in a small community. They really like their regulars, and people know they can come and watch their grandchildren, for example, for free. You can bring your pets. Some people come just to walk their dogs. Some of the best food you'll ever taste. So now that I can't do the big coasters, not because of my girth, but because of the head injuries, they do have a great ride called Flying Turns, which they built themselves at their own lumberyard. These are some really like do-it-yourself people, right, with an incredible work ethic. So I'll usually bring my kids, and I'll watch as they do. The Phoenix is a great roller coaster. The Twister is a great roller coaster. Love the log flume there. Every year, maybe we can flash this up, for our fans when it airs. Every year we take the log flume photo. And it was only about 4 years ago my kids caught on that I wasn't really scared. But for years, I would just, on the way up the hill, I go, okay, what scary face am I going to do now? And I had a great variety of scary faces. And one time I overheard my son Huey talking to Mickey, wondering why Dad was able to be thrown off the top of a cell, but he was so scared of log flumes.
Well, he's applying a little logic. You're busted. I can't help but follow up there. And he said, I can't ride the coasters anymore, not because of my girth, which is where I thought you would say, but with my head injuries. When did that start? When did you have to give up
I
coasters?
got to about 2012. So that was, I did a memoir, my Santa memoir, knowing that people weren't going to read it, knowing this is a really small part of the Foley electorate. But I talked about what a big deal it was to have that opportunity to portray that character, because it was a tough time for me. I'd been, granted, I'd made the comeback so often, it wasn't even a comeback anymore. But still, retiring in a neurologist's office, shaking a neurologist's hand when he said you should never wrestle again, that's different than deciding for yourself that the gig is up. And it was also a time when I had a real aversion to bright lights. So there are some photos taken when I was doing the one-man shows where I'm in sunglasses, which is a ridiculous look for me, but I couldn't take the lights. And one of the drawbacks to TNA, which I didn't know at the time, I didn't know why I was getting these terrible headaches 2 days into a 4 or 5 day run, is because TNA, they were really accessible to fans. They did the meet and greets. Probably too many meet and greets. Like if you came away from an Impact show and you didn't meet 6 wrestlers, you hadn't tried very hard, right? But they would do the meet and greets and everyone had the flashes. Now it's different with the cameras don't need the flashes as often. But it was like, whoa, these blinding flashes were coming at me. So the first 2 days of the tour, I would be fine. I'd be having fun. And then the next 2 days, I didn't want to be around people. I mean, I had the, serious ramifications, and I was also getting concussions just about every time that I wrestled.
Wow.
And you still have that old school ethic. I've got one more left in me, and you don't think that, when I came to the conclusion, when I wrote Countdown to Lockdown, and I wrote the sentence, there was a match, King of the Mountain. And I know we're veering way off the Knobles question, but I think this is pretty interesting and pretty relevant. The King of the Mountain match, I got my bell rung 3 times during the match. Now, on almost every other occasion when I felt like I was lightheaded the next day, had a minor head injury, I would be able to look at the footage and say, okay, that's where it happened. And in this case, in all 3 times, I was thinking, I think they missed a camera shot. What happened? Samoa Joe, just regular forearms. I was like, wow, is he stiffing me while it was happening? And then I look at the tape, and he wasn't stiffing me.
Right.
It was just that it just didn't take much to rattle me anymore. So on all 3 occasions, couldn't figure out the source of the bell ringing. And then I finally realized, I get it. It takes less and less to hurt me worse and worse for longer and longer periods of time. And one of my big regrets is that the moment I put the period on that sentence, that should have been it.
Yeah.
Once you know that's the gig is up. And instead, I did a few more. But that was a really difficult time for me. And so in rapid succession, I couldn't wrestle. I couldn't do, at the time, I'd been an online volunteer for a group called RAIN. But the computer was giving me bad headaches after about 10 minutes. And the roller coaster, everything a lot of the things that I enjoyed. And because my lovemaking was so passionate, there were often some injuries involved, and I had to, all right. So, but anyway, it was a tough time for me. And
You
the
had
Santa,
me in the first half. You did.
Everything I said was true up until the lovemaking part.
Sometimes that crumbles in your hand. It is what it is.